Okay, then we will call the regular meeting to order Monday, April 12th, and we will all rise and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I, I pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance to
flag
the
of the
flag
United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America
America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
under
with
God,
liberty and justice
indivisible,
for all.
with liberty and justice. Thank you. Okay, we have roll call, please. Katie, are you taking notes tonight? Who's who's taking roll?
Roll call.
Okay, we're
Deb.
ready.
Okay. Deb
Yep.
Pauley,
Here.
Ryan Dainert,
Here.
Sandy Burke,
Here.
Connie Hennon, Lauren Pedersen,
Here.
Sarah Lanen,
Here.
Molly Monarch.
Here. Thank you. Next, we have consideration of the agenda. We had a couple of late additions. We had consent items 6 and 7 added, and the old consent items 6 and 7 moved down to 8 and 9. And then we had one action discussion item added. It was the activities update. I believe Superintendent Evenson, those are the only changes, correct? Correct. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Lauren gets it and Ryan seconds it. Okay, discussion. Okay, hearing none, roll call, please, Stephen.
Deb Pauley,
Yes.
Ryan Dainert,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennon,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Sarah Lanen,
Yeah.
Molly Monarch.
Yes. Motion carries. Consent agenda items, we have the minutes from the March meeting, the monthly March finance reports. For donations, we have a donation from Cliff Clare to the high school band, a donation of a trombone, a flute case, and a music case. We have a donation from Marines Readers to the elementary school, one book program in the amount of $3,000. We have a donation from Hometown Bank for middle school quiet equipment. Pads and wrestling mats. We have the contract for Elise Pickle, interim communications specialist. We have Molly Huss as the LT long-term sub in the RTI reading program. We have the retirement of Joe Klatt and retirement of elementary school custodian Mark Sokol. So I will entertain a motion to approve consent.
This is Sandy, so moved.
Motion by Sandy, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Sarah.
Second by Sarah. Before we vote, I just want to acknowledge Joe Klatt. He's been a longtime elementary school teacher, greatly loved. He will be dearly missed by his colleagues and especially by his students. And also I want to thank our elementary school custodian, Mark Sokol. He too will be greatly missed by the elementary school. So with that, any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Deb Pauley,
Yes.
Ryan Dainert,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennon,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Sarah Lanen,
Yes.
Molly Monarch.
Yes.
Motion carries. On to 7.1, activities update. I believe this is our athletic director, activities director, Joe Perkle, in tandem with our superintendent, I believe.
All right. All right, thanks for having me. Joe Perkle, Activities Director.
It's been a while since I've been here to talk to you in person, so happy to be here and see your faces. Not your mouths, but your faces. So let's dive right on into this. Let's talk about what has been going well. This is going to be kind of an overall look at the activities department through the 2021 school year thus far. And there's obviously been our challenges, which I'll get into, but let's start with some of the good things. I think the first thing I have to do is give a shout out to all of our coaches who have done a really good job with leadership, follow through, and ever-changing guidelines that are coming down through me, MDH, MDE, MSHSL. It's been great to have that leadership. It's a hard enough job in any year, but this year has been beyond difficult for all of us. So a big shout out to our coaches and leadership there. Part of that, their job has now become contact tracers as well. We've had many coaches do a really good job of this. Shout out to Ozzie Sand. For football, we did have a situation where we maybe had to quarantine more kids, but he did have proof and did a very good job of contact tracing to make sure we were able to play. Now, as you know, we didn't get to finish the football season anyway, but he got those kids in as many games as we could. Another thing that has gone really well, and it's really still kind of unclear, is competing in the Wright County Conference this year. Our schedule, because of the changing of the seasons, has been primarily a conference-only schedule in most sports. And for the most part, in most sports, we're holding our own in this conference where we are one of the smaller schools now. Next year, we will see Orono, New Prague, and Waconia leave the conference and Southwest Christian come in, and suddenly we become one of the middle to bigger schools in the conference in the East Division. So next year with the 6 schools, we're excited to have a real good balanced schedule of competitive conference games, some competitive non-conference games, and some of our traditional rivalries and matchups that we've had in years past. That is, hopefully, if we see a normal schedule. So that's our plan for next year. And again, competing in this new conference has been great. I've enjoyed the leadership and communication with the other ADs in this conference. And it's nice to have other people to bounce things off of because of challenge number 1 I have up here is the evolving protocols and guidance from the Minnesota State High School League, MDH, and MDE. I'll get into it a little later, but just this past week we got additional guidance on spectators for the spring. It seems like it's almost like the movie Office Space, and they like to do these things on Friday afternoon. We get these emails at about 4 or 5 p.m. on a Friday. After we tell our coaches one thing, when we come back on Monday, we're doing something different. So going back to the shout out on the coaches, the flexibility has been very important this year, not only for our coaches, but our athletes and fine arts participants, and our parents and spectators. I also have contact tracing on the biggest challenge side. Contact tracing we're dealing with right now with our spring sports already, and it's been a very big challenge, and it's something that is not a perfect thing. It's not, it's not like we have a stopwatch out and we get a little light that turns on once we have 15 minutes of exposure and coaches are watching this. It's a very difficult thing, the contact tracing, and it's a very kind of a hot button topic as most of us are dealing with COVID fatigue and ready to be done with this. But unfortunately, we need to do that. It's still something we need to be diligent on, and it's something that we're making sure our coaches and directors are keeping track of: exposure, pods, bus seating charts, all of that fun stuff. Part of that, I had it next to the competing in the Wright County Conference, is that pause we had to take in November and December. That was tough as numbers were skyrocketing, and we were trying to get through the fall season. We had to cut it short. We missed volleyball playoffs. We played one football kind of cross-section type of matchup, and then we called it a fall, and we kind of went into hibernation for a little while. That was hard, I think, mentally and physically for all of us, especially our athletes, to have to be home and to try and get coaching virtually and to not know what's going to happen when and if we do come back. Luckily, we were able to come back on January 4th was the first day of winter sports, which was great to get people back in the building, hear basketballs bouncing, hear the whistles blowing. But that was kind of the beginning there, and that's when we started with the Wright County competition. And then the other challenges I have up there, the transportation piece is tough. We have to limit how many people we can put on buses. So it's been tough to, from a budget side, I said on what's going well, our activities budget, we've been able to work within it just because we haven't been going to as many invitationals, tournaments, things like that. Supplies are down. We just don't need as much because we haven't been playing as many games and events. However, that transportation piece and the spectators piece came into play when we did come back in January. It was unclear at that time whether we were going to have fans in our stands or if they would be empty gyms. I know that in the summer we had the opportunity to sign a contract with Prep Spotlight, which allowed us streaming of many of our varsity events, which has been a really good tool for us. It's been turnkey for our department. They come in, they film, they announce, and they stream that, and it's been really nice. That will continue this spring with baseball and softball. But with that, and as many of you may know, I suffered a pretty significant concussion at the beginning of January. There's never a good time for that, but it really put me in a tough spot trying to prepare for this new updated guidance that was, again, coming a mile a minute, sometimes Friday afternoons when we had a game the next Monday or Tuesday. So that was not perfect, but we got through that. And then our mask policies and follow through with that is tough. It's really hard when you look at what we're asking out of our kids and coaches during this tough time to compete with these masks on and to get through that. And then for people to have to deal with me coming up constantly and telling them to pull their mask up over their nose or spread out or this or that. And I know I got tired of saying it, so I know they got tired of hearing it. So it was that was a big challenge and still tends to be as we get outside now and as I'll get into it, but masks are going to continue, and that's going to be very difficult for all of us. The other thing that was a big challenge, practice space. We simply, with the winter being mostly indoor sports other than Nordic ski, we just did not have the space or the gym capacities for our participation. And that's an issue right now, in fact, because when we bring inside on a rainy day or a sleety, snowy day like tomorrow, we just simply do not have enough space to provide for all of our programming. It's hard enough in a non-COVID situation, but especially now. And unfortunately, with our middle school groups, we did start them after spring break, and they're kind of the lower level program where if we do not have the space, we're going to sadly have to maybe give them the day off or do a classroom chalk talk or something like that, which is not great, but it's what we have and that's what we can provide. I think there was one other thing I wanted to end on a positive is just the participation numbers. It's a good problem to have. We don't have enough space because we have just about the same amount of participation as we've had in years past. And now we can flip over to that next slide. Just looking at fall, if you go down the line and kind of look at the numbers, there's nothing that pops out as we really lost a lot of kids or suddenly there's a big group joining. It's pretty balanced and pretty similar to what we had the year before. So our soccer teams did add Belle Plaine as a co-op. We had about 5 or 6, I think, what do we have? 3 girls and 2 boys. I think it was the final number from Belle Plaine. I've heard that there may be more, but they didn't really want to be known as the Jordan Hubmen or Jordan Jaguars, but that is what we voted on, and that's what we're going to have that soccer program be for the foreseeable future. Cross country, same thing, that numbers are pretty similar there. They were able to get through their season. Volleyball, same thing. And then football, as you can see, the numbers are very similar. So winter, we move on, and again, the numbers look very similar. We did not have a middle school basketball season this year. And going forward, and I found out, so next year we will have, again, with the Wright County Conference, we do a split middle school basketball. So boys and girls are not playing at the same time. Girls, it's been determined since we didn't really have a season last year, it's going to stay with the same schedule as girls first, starting late October, going to winter break. And then after winter break, the boys pick up and go till about early mid-March. This is a good thing for us in any situation because we have a lot of basketball people in this town, and we do use up most of our courts on a given practice night. Splitting middle school is a great thing for Jordan because that allows us to have the middle school gym just for the 7th and 8th grade girls or the 7th and 8th grade boys. Instead of both programs going on at the same time and having to spill over to River Valley or the Cirque, that allows some more flexibility with our high school teams. So in the end, I think this is a good thing. Most of those kids do have the JBA association option as well. So they're going to still get plenty of basketball even with the modified season that'll come. So as you can see, that was an NA because we just didn't have it this year. Middle school wrestling, we put a little asterisk there because we did have 3 kids make the JV or varsity team for wrestling But we also did not offer middle school wrestling as a standalone program this winter, again, due to space and just interest. Our numbers at the middle school level, our kids are either ready to compete at the varsity or JV level, or we just had very few for wrestling. We do have a gymnastics co-op in place. We do have one female student who is taking advantage of that co-op with Prior Lake and competing. It's fun to see those updates come across social media and how the Prior Lake gymnastics team is doing. And then we added Nordic Ski this year. That was a fun program, and actually we did add one more boy, so there was 5 boys, 2 girls. All of the Jordan athletes, except for the young man who joined late, were part of our competitive section team. I believe there were 21 total Scott West Nordic skiers, and we hope to see that number significantly increase because I think even with everything else going on, it was a very successful year, and they were able to get outside, and we had good snow this winter. So that's not always the case, but I think it was a very good experience for our Nordic skiers. Just to kind of wrap up the winter season, one act competed in the Section 2A and finished 3rd place. This is first year in a while that Tony Rydberg was not the director. We had Marie Wignall, who is our middle school spring and fall director, lead that group, and they did a fully virtual show. So all rehearsals, everything was virtual. It was great. We knew that this thing's going to happen no matter what because we're home and we're able to get this done. So I was able to watch it on Sunday afternoon of the performance weekend, and it was pretty cool to see our kids competing in a virtual world. Nordic ski, like we talked about, we had the first ever Nordic ski season, and it was a successful year. We had the 20 skiers, and we'll be working on getting them some uniforms so they don't look like the Mighty Ducks out there next year, since they had to just kind of wear matching black and matching black hats. So we're going to actually have the I don't know how you call it, like a spacesuit type of singlet type of racing uniform, which will be really nice for them going forward. Dance team, this was pretty impressive. We only had 5 dancers, which the numbers are bad and not where we want them to be. We'd like more dancers. You have to have 5 to compete in a varsity meet. So that means all 5 of those girls had to stay healthy. They had to stay out of quarantine. They had to stay on the gym floor all year long for this team to compete, and they did. They got through the entire season together healthy and were able to finish at the section meet. So I thought that was pretty awesome that they were able to get through this year together at the minimum number that they had. Wrestling, not the finish we wanted as a team, finished runner-up in Section 2AA, lost to TCU, and we did have one Scott West wrestler, and it was a Jordan student, Matt Randolph at 106, who placed second at state. Great year by Matt, and excited to watch him come back and keep wrestling. We've got a good group of kids coming back with the wrestling program. So that should be next year should be much better. We should hopefully bring back middle school wrestling and have a good majority of our varsity kids back too. So hope to see them be able to compete again next year in better conditions, hopefully. Girls basketball, they finished the season 12-8. You look at that record, you don't think that's very good, but that got us the 1 seed in 2AA. Finished as section runners-up, not where we wanted to finish either, but an overall successful year for them to get through. Again, boys basketball finishing with a regular season with a losing record received a 1 seed. And this is when people look at, why are we going to the Wright County Conference? It does matter. A loss in the Wright County sometimes for your QRF, which is this magical formula that we use for seeding a lot of times, or coaches vote, these wins and losses playing these types of opponents matter versus playing somebody who maybe is down a class or maybe a team that's not a very good team in our class. I don't have anything final yet, but it is looking very likely that both basketballs and volleyball will be moving up a class next year. So that is, I'm rounding out my 4th year here, and that will mean every one of our athletics or fine arts has moved up a class in my time here. That's one of the things we're dealing with our growing pains. We're getting bigger, so we need to find that competition, and that is a reason why we went to the Wright County Conference to join officially at the beginning of this year. And now we are going to be competing in the same kind of section playoffs across all activities now in schools those sizes. Speech, we finished 3rd in the Wright County Conference. I think it was just a point or 2 out of 2nd place. I got to make sure I say that because we were darn close. 5th in sections, and we do have 6 state participants. We've got Connor Lusky and Autumn Pesic in duo. We've got Cece Biskins and Sophie Fritzky in duo. We got Trinity Thorstad in humor and Elizabeth Osborne in serious prose. So pretty cool deal for them. They will be competing virtually next Friday. We got to find some space for them yet, which we will do, Coach Peters, to compete. And once we do, they will complete virtually, and they have to do that live. So that'll be a big day for our speech team. And this will be our first year officially competing in Class 2A. We've always been a single A school, and like I tell all of our coaches, they are the same age, same size, same brains as we are. They're just bigger schools. You can compete with anybody. So we're want to wish good luck to our individuals competing in the state speech meet next week. The next slide here, you'll see the spring sports mask requirements. This is cut and paste from the guidance provided by the State High School League. This is exactly coming from the Minnesota State High School League. As you can see, baseball and softball, pretty much no wiggle room. You're wearing a mask at all times, every time, no exceptions. Basically individual workouts where you can separate by 6 feet, but we don't get a lot of that in. So pretty much baseball and softball will be wearing masks throughout the year. There are some additional guidance on just dugouts, things like that, but I did not include that here. Track and field, this one is, I'll admit, very confusing. This is hard when you just read this the way this reads. But it in some competitions you do not need to wear a mask. In events such as hurdles, pole vault, high jump, and the throwing events. However, it's kind of unclear on some of the running events. So the nice thing is the Wright County Conference coaches had a Zoom meeting last week with our sport coordinator for track and wrote up some conference policy on this, on what our expectations are. And I don't have this on the slideshow, but for the most part, on most running events, we will need to wear masks. However, we're hoping to find a way to either toss the mask once we start the race or once we're able to separate a little bit. But this is a tough one too, because I think it's going to be very hard, especially as it starts to heat up, for our kids to be competing in this way with masks on. So again, we were 3 days away from the Nordic Ski first meet, thinking we had to wear masks for the entire 5K, and then we got guidance that they could take their masks off once we start. So hopefully we get a little more clear guidance on exactly what the expectations are for track. We worked with our coaches. We had some issues last week. We've kind of cleaned up our expectations locally for practices and for pod sizes, but still hoping to see maybe something open up more for meets, because right now the understanding is we're probably going to be wearing masks except for the throwers and the high jumpers. Golf, people have been social distancing on golf courses for 200 years. I think that that was part of this guidance was golfers probably will not have to wear masks as long as they can keep that distance. There are going to be times where they're going to have to come together and they will need to put those masks on, but for the most part, when they're out competing on the course and they're able to social distance, they will not need to wear masks. I've been kind of rambling here. Do we have any questions that you guys have written down? You want me to keep rolling? Save them for the end. All right, let's keep rolling then. Well, last week, this one kind of caught us ADs off guard. As we were settling in with our guidance for spring and starting to put together information to send out to visiting schools, the State High School League dropped this one on us. The first three are kind of self-explanatory. The first one is the one that I'm going to be paying the most attention to, and that is spectators must remain separated from the competition by a minimum of 12 feet. That's no different from what we did in the winter, where we had 12 feet from either the mat, the dance floor, or the basketball court. That will be the same thing on the baseball field, the track, surface, the jumps area, softball field, golf courses. Got to stay 12 feet away from our competitors. That's going to be a big one for us. Number two, spectators must be separated by at least 6 feet between households and spectator groups. That means if we're out at the mini-met, there are going to be people sitting next to each other. My expectation and assumption is that those people are related and in that group because they are in a family together. What we can't have is just a big old student section with kids without their masks on. That's where I'm going to have to be the bad guy and step in and ask them to spread out a little bit. Number three, and this was something I had information ready to send out, but this one kind of caught us by surprise. All spectators at indoor and outdoor events must wear a mask or face covering. We'll just leave it at that. In addition, it states that all school districts must require advanced reservations and or ticketing, online ticketing, app-based, email, or will call. Walk-ins, impromptu purchases, or admittance will not be allowed. So, To try and satisfy this requirement, this morning we did send out a email to all of our participants' families to fill out a Google form for any activities they may attend. We're going to use this if we do have to do a contact tracing situation to communicate out, and there'll be a lead in each family that will then communicate out on the tree that of the contacts they put on that list. I'm going to have a really hard time policing this, and I think anyone in the state will. When you look at how spread out our campus is, how we've already, and we'll get into it, how we've been hit with so many fees already, to think about putting 4 or 5 site managers on a night, looking at everyone's name to see if they're on a list, it's unrealistic. So we're going to do the best we can. We're going to make sure we get everyone this information to be able to sign up so we have their information. And if we have a situation where we need to contact you, we will contact you. Some additional guidance that we will be sending out for our events is bring your own lawn chair, because bleacher space will be limited, especially if you're not with your family and having to spread out. At this time, we don't really anticipate having to limit our spectator capacities. Based on the MDH guidance and the amount of green space we have around our playing fields, the only one would be potentially track. We will be doing Wright County Conference quad meets, and if you look at, we can have a maximum of 250 people participate in it. That's coaches and athletes. So if that's, let's just call it 200 and, let's just call it 200. Let's say that we have 50 coaches, but let's say we have 200 athletes. So 2 spectators per participant would be 400 people. I don't know if we can accommodate 400 people in our bleachers and jumps and height and throws area. So that's something, luckily, we don't host a track meet. Now, we were supposed to this Friday. Now that might get moved. I'm going to let Orono and Waconia be the guinea pig on this and kind of see what they're doing. But I know Orono was looking at a capacity of 250 people, which is 1 spectator per participant. I would like to do more, but that's kind of TBD at this time. Additionally, the State High School did ask us to register anyone who will attend an event. I attached a link there. If you guys want to click on it, you can see what that form looks like. But it's pretty simple to just go forward and sign up for it. And I would encourage anyone who is a softball parent, if you make it over to a varsity baseball game, just click that tab too. It doesn't hurt to put you on that list. All right.
Can I ask you a quick question? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We're waiting till the end. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Come on, Lauren. Follow the rules. All
Sorry.
right. Last thing I'm going to touch on is musical. This also has a little to do with our middle school play. But for the musical, we expect to be able to have some seating in the auditorium, roughly 50%, so right around 200 people, hopefully, per show. We won't have any seating close enough to the stage where they would be 12 feet from the participant. Indoor, either way, obviously, we would ask that masks are on at all times, and we'll be using an online ticketing system and kind of assigning seats based on your family size to maximize space in the auditorium. Instead of doing a pre-seating chart and saying 4 seats here, 2 there, 3 there, we're going to allow everyone to purchase the amount of tickets they need and make sure everyone is sitting next to each other and try and put them in the best seats, first come, first serve. We are going to offer this ticket window to our participants in the musical first, so their families have the first access to get seats, and then we will open it up to the public once they have ample time. Next is a pretty fun one here, and if you're someone who likes organization and clean spaces, these pictures, I wish I had some before pictures for you. We've done quite a bit of work in our weight room over the last 3 years. We are now playing 4A football. And I would comfortably say we have one of the smallest footprints of a weight room in our size class for football. For 4A football, we have one of the smallest weight rooms. So we needed to maximize that space. We started a couple of years ago by adding these double half racks, which allowed us more space. However, we could really only utilize 1/2 of them because we had to push them so close to the mirror on the other side that we not only broke 2 mirrors, but didn't have enough space on the other side to really get much done. So in purging, and I believe it was December or January board meeting, you declared a surplus on some weight room equipment. That allowed us to free up some space and really just have equipment in there that is relevant to the modern weightlifting program. And this is what you'll see now. You'll see those double half racks have come off the wall, so both sides can be utilized. Everything on the left side there is free weights or machines that we do use. And the the bars and the plates themselves may have been original to when the high school was this building. So they were rusty. We got brand new bars last year, and those bars were already getting rust and dust all over them. So we have purged those plates, and we have brand new plastic coated plates. They're all kind of the same size, very nice plates. Spent a lot of money on those. Those should be there until that building is no longer there. Those should be permanent and live in that weight room for a long time. So those are great. We also got more equipment. We got medicine balls, clips. The very last kind of big thing we have in there is the dumbbell sets, and updating those. And hope to, in the next couple of years, get those updated, as they are also very rusty and leave quite a bit on your hands when you're done with them. Additional donations, part of this large Booster Club donation, fleece capes. This is pretty cool. They are the big, huge capes that you see on football sidelines typically. Go over the shoulder pads. We intentionally got them black with a silver J on the back because our Nordic ski program used them quite a bit this winter. And especially when they go to those skin suits for racing next year. Those aren't very warm, and you get a cold day. You want to be able to keep that cape on up until your race time. So not only will we utilize that for football, but also for Nordic ski. We also got basketball warm-up shirts for all levels. As we came into the new conference, that was big for the Booster Club to want us to look the part as we come out on the court. So we handed down varsity warm-ups to the C squad. We got brand new JV and varsity warm-up tops, matching for both programs, boys and girls. And the Booster Club has also offered and is going to be paying all of our booster-funded coaches. We have a lot of coaches that are paid Schedule 3C through the district. We also have some additional coaches in some of our programs that are funded through the Booster Club. And this was really nice because that helps alleviate some of the stress of those individual booster budgets by that coming out of the general fund. So that was very nice. All right, now the fees conversation. As you know, tonight we have the agenda item or action item of a potential fee increase. So just to give you a little more background on the numbers as you look at them over the last 2 years. Our expenses 2 years ago, $741,000, and we brought in a revenue of $187,000, 84 of which came from those activity fees, and 102, almost 103, came out of gate admissions and miscellaneous revenue. This past year, with spring really not, I mean, I guess, actually, no, I'm sorry. We do have spring included in here. Where are we at? Right there. Okay. Should I do projected expenses? Gotcha. All right. So let's talk about projected expenses first here. So this year, well, prior to this year, coming into this year, we had to make a $25 reduction to the activities budget. I think that was a product of where we're at with the referendum and some other things prior to. So we made that cut. We froze our uniform budget. Coming into next year, we're going to trim an additional $19,000 off of that activities budget, keeping that uniform budget frozen. We're going to look at creative ways to make sure we don't fall behind in our uniforms. Part of that is our Nike agreement that we made. We're entering year 4 of 5 on that. With that, we get $10,000 in Nike stock apparel. We can source some of our uniforms that way. We will just have to pay for the embroidery and the lettering with those, but that's one way to try and keep up with this so we don't fall too far behind, because even though the uniform budget or uniform rotation is on a 5-year rotation, that uniform in 5 years goes to JV and in 5 years goes to C. So those uniforms we want to make sure we kind of keep up, because we don't want them to be wearing 1980s uniforms like our boys basketball team did on throwback night. Looking at our projected revenue here, again on this year, our activity fees are at 103. You think, wow, how did we get almost 20,000 more in activity fees this year? Well, we didn't have a spring season last year, so we refunded those dollars for the most part. So those numbers are a little hard to tell, but I would say if you were looking for a better number, I would say this year would probably be more accurate, because last year we did not have that spring season. And then obviously the gate admissions, very low this past year. We didn't really have much besides some individual tickets, a few games, and for the most part, just a year pass that we offered to families at 2 spectators per participant. So, again, I would say if you're looking at it, your activity fee is probably more accurate for this year. Your gate admission probably more accurate for last year. So you look at that and you think, what is our percentage of the activity budget actually come from activity fees? Really, it's not much. Activities fees cover about 11 to 14% of our overall budget. So with that being said, there's also some other variables to talk about, and that's the State High School League experienced quite a bit of financial issues here without being able to host state tournaments. They at one point had mentioned that 85% of the league's revenue comes from hosting state tournaments. Not having that put them in a really, really bad spot, and that's when it came to us that the company line that the league is the member schools and the member schools are the league, and those fees were put back on us member schools. So as you can see, our MSHSL fee, which has been traditionally the same number for a few years, was about $3,000, and then another $110 per activity that we sponsor here at Jordan. We were hit with, in September, an email with a $9,000 COVID fee for a school our size. That fee was larger for larger schools and a little less for some of our smaller schools. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody budgeted for this. This was kind of thrust upon us to say it's either this or we fold it in. I think it was kind of the ultimatum that it seemed to be. So this was a tough one for us to swallow, but we don't know what's going to happen next year. The state tournaments really aren't happening in the same way they are this year, so this might not get any better between now and next year. So it very well could be that COVID fee is put on us member schools, again, very similar to the way it was this year. So something to keep our eyes on as we budget and work with Amy, our finance director, on those things. We do an annual review on our fees. It's not uncommon that us ADs have a Google sheet where we plug in all of our fees every year or every other year and make sure we're kind of in line with where we're at with each other. So we do review this. We haven't made a change now in 3 years. And in a little bit here, we'll be asking about a proposed fee increase. I do know that there's a couple other board meetings happening in our area, geographical area tonight that are also, this is also on the agenda, is a fee increase. Nobody wants to see fees go up, but as you can see by our revenue and where we're at, we're just struggling to get by. So one thing I do want to make sure we talk about is we would never ever deny a student participation due to a financial hardship. If you can't pay for an activity, we're not going to hold you out of it. Whether you're on free or reduced lunch or not, everyone's going to participate. It's never going to be a financial reason why we would hold somebody out of participating in this district. So we looked at it. We looked at what would a $25 fee increase based on this past year's participation numbers look like. It would have created about almost $26,000 in additional revenue this year based on those fees. And looking at this chart here, if you look at our like schools, these are what I did was I isolated the public schools in the East Division of the Wright County. So next year these will be, and I added New Prague just because of geography. They will be leaving the conference, but I wanted to show them as well. You can see that based on, now this is with the proposed increase. Right now high school football is 175, high school athletics are 150, and middle school athletics are 100. So with the proposed increase, you can see we're still kind of in line with some of the other public schools in the East. I did put a couple of notes on there. Hutch, they do have their high school athletics do range a little bit. Delano next year will probably be increasing fees, and New Prague will also this year will be increasing fees, along with Eastern Carter County Schools are proposing a fee increase. So just looking at those numbers, you can see that even with the increase, we're still sort of in line with the other public schools in the East Division of the Wright County Conference. All right, at this time, happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions for Joe. Lauren, did you have some?
I do. I gotta go back to the presentation and go back to the slide where my question was to remember what my question was. So hang on a minute. I think it was around the spectator guidance. Okay, so my question is if I'm a spectator, do I need to sign up for every individual game I plan to participate or go to, or can I say I plan on attending Jordan baseball and softball games, so I just want to sign up once?
That's a great question, Lauren. Yeah, our goal is with this Google form, you sign up one time. Then what would happen, let's say you do sign up for baseball, and we do have an issue where we need to contact at baseball. You may have not been at that game, however, you'll get an email saying that there was a close contact positive case, or a positive case at the game, and that email will come to you, and the expectation is that you would communicate with any names you added to your form that you filled out. So just one time. We would not expect people to do this more than the one time.
Okay.
And I have a follow-up question to that. What about the opponent spectator?
So what would happen there is, let's say we're on the road, and we'll stick with baseball as our example. So let's say we're on the road at baseball, and there's a situation at Waconia, and their AD says, you know what, we had a fan that tested positive in the game versus Jordan at Waconia. At that point, we would take whatever communication they have, and we would then send it to our people saying there was a close contact, or there was a positive case, and quite honestly, I don't know what we're going to do with that, because everyone should be monitoring their symptoms every day anyway. This is just saying, hey, there was somebody at that game. Keep an eye on your symptoms. It's pretty much the gist of what will come to you.
Perfect.
Other questions for Joe or comments?
The high school league fees was the $9,000 or whatever the increase was that presented as the new fees, or just this is what you need to pay this year because we're in trouble?
It was presented as a COVID fee.
Okay. So we
So-
don't know going forward whether they'll go back or be somewhere in the middle.
Right, I think it's kind of vague that way, because now they have another year to look at it, and quite honestly, if you look at what they've done just in 2021, there was no state football. There was no, whatever happened at the XL was not a state hockey tournament. So those are their big money makers. Those didn't happen this year. I got to imagine it could even be in a worse place than it was the year before, because they actually held those tournaments in 1920.
So if they didn't have all of these big tournaments and stuff, what else are their expenses? Like, what all does that $9,000 cover, plus our activity fees, cover for the Minnesota High School League?
That's a great question, Lauren. And quite honestly, we have a former MSHSL board member in this meeting, and so I'm going to defer to her on that one.
Thank you, Deb.
The role of the league is so much bigger than just the tournaments, Lauren. They monitor all activities for all schools, so it goes far beyond tournaments. They deal with placements, and they deal with students that get put in the wrong place, or that try to opt in. They do a lot of the medical concussion training. They do the coaches trainings. Of course, they work with our activities directors and athletic directors, and they're far bigger than just tournaments.
Yeah, they have the catastrophic insurance for all of our athletes across the state, officials, trainings, and a lot of legal stuff that I'm sure we don't see on the daily.
Absolutely.
So if there are not any other questions,
Sorry, I have one. Sorry. Is that okay?
absolutely. I got all night.
Well, when I was trying to go through this spreadsheet and trying to figure out in terms of the expenses, and I know I talked to Renee a little bit this afternoon about it too, that $25,000, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think it doesn't include, so I don't know that we'd get quite that amount of revenue, because first of all, there's going to be kids who obviously we want to, like you said, Joe, that we are going to make sure that they are involved in the sport regardless of what they can pay, right? So there's going to be a little bit less in that regard. I don't know how many kids that involves, but I'm sure there's some. Secondly, I think that what will happen also is you have that family cap, and we're not raising that family cap. So I don't know, will that actually then, so that $25 will really just go towards your family cap if you have a child who's in 3 activities. Is that correct?
Yeah, for tonight's meeting as an action item, raising the family max or lowering the family max is not on the action item list today.
No, and nor am I suggesting that it should be. I'm just saying that that $25 increase, so basically, so if I'm paying $150 right now for each activity, that's $450, and the family max, I forget what it is, $425 or something like that, I think.
And
So then I'll be paying $175, then it'll be whatever that is, $350, $525, but I wouldn't be paying that, and so it'll be cut off by the family max. So I actually won't be paying that extra. You know what?
Sandy, you're correct. 25,000 is an estimate.
Okay. I don't know how much that will impact, because and nobody really does, because we don't know how many kids will be in 3 activities or more. I think most kids, and we really promote that. I know that. I think it's a value of Jordan that we want well-rounded athletes. We want well-rounded kids who participate in a lot of different activities, and that's why we even have. I think that's part of why we have the family cap. But I just wanted to kind of get an idea as to how much that will actually impact. So.
Yep,
Okay.
and I didn't say it in my my words here, but on the slide it did say that that did not take into account free and reduced and max numbers. So it is very much an estimate on what we would hope to bring in with that increase.
I guess maybe a different way to ask that. You may not have the answer, but do you have any idea how many families have traditionally been at the max?
We could find that out,
I mean,
but I don't know
I'm
off
not
the
trying
top
to
of
put you
my
on the spot, but that might be a way to back into.
Yep. No, and there
understanding
are
what it is.
we do have a lot of families, and even just an individual family max. If you have a 3-sport athlete, they're not going to pay that full.
Sure.
Say it's 200 football, 175, and then they would have a discount in the spring. So yep.
I'm assuming you're comparing other districts as far as what they do on those maxes as well.
Yeah, the maxes. With this increase, we didn't look at the family maxes. A lot of times you kind of have them paired together. However, I believe, and I can't remember if it was last year, 2 years ago, we did increase our family max, but did not increase our fees. So we're kind of going every 2 years on the family max registration fee increase, as we haven't had them in line, and maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't. I don't know if there's a right way to do it. But in the end, like Sandy said, we want to encourage our multi-activity kids, and we want families to hit that family max. We do. We want them to get that break for hitting those numbers.
Another question you may not have the answer to. The 11 to 14% of activity of activity budget being covered by the fees, is that comparable? Do we have any idea? I mean, as enrollment gets larger, does that start to cover a higher percentage, or kind of scale with?
I would guess it's more in line than the ticket revenue. I would say that could be all over the place for different schools with different gym sizes. But as far as schools our size and the similar participation numbers, that would be probably fairly comparable, I would guess. Again, just an estimate. Because, if you have more kids, a larger school, you're going to have more participants, but you're also going to have more expenses. You're going to have more transportation, more coaches to hire. So I would guess that's fairly comparable, but I don't know that for sure.
And just to be clear, last year the event prices went up, so we're not looking to raise that at all, correct?
Yeah, I didn't even talk on that. That was up on the slide there. We did increase, even though many people didn't even notice it this year because we didn't have an opportunity, but we increased from $4 to $6 student and adult tickets to $5 for students and $7 for adults. For the most part this year, we did season-long passes at $7 across the board. But next year, we hope to settle into a situation where adults would be paying $7 per game, $5 per student, and bringing back the year passes for those people who come to plenty of events would get a season pass, save you quite a bit of money. We would not be increasing the cost on those passes as well.
Other questions for Joe? No
All
other
right.
questions?
Thank you all so
Okay.
much. Go Hubman, go Jaguars, go Panthers, love maroon, live gold.
Thank you, Joel. We know it's been a tough year and we appreciate you hanging in there. Okay. Then we're going to move on to 7.2, which is reviewing and acting on the 21-22 activity fee increases that Joe just presented to us. So I will entertain a motion to approve the recommended 21-22 activity fee. Was that Connie?
I'll second.
I'm having a hard time
Okay.
hearing.
Yeah, make
Yeah,
sure you
Connie and
guys,
Sarah, I'm having a hard time.
yeah, make sure you speak into your mics, please. So we have a motion by Connie and a second by Ryan. Okay, is there any more discussion or comments on the activity fee changes?
I guess
Okay.
I guess this is hard. I mean, in a year where a lot of people have been hit by, maybe job losses or at least, revenue loss and all of that. I mean, nobody wants to do this. I understand why we're doing it. But it's just hard to vote for an increase when you've got, people who are suffering. And I know we won't turn anybody away, but I also know that there are families who will be too proud to ask, or that we won't even know that they need it. And so I just always am, and it's so important to have those connections, where kids have a connection to the school. And so I just worry about, because we raised the fees a couple of years ago and then we raised the max last year. And so it just feels like a lot, for, over the past few years. And, it's just going to be hard. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for it, but I'm just bringing that up because it worries my heart.
I think another thing online with that is, what happens if you get quarantined and then you're quarantined and you miss 3/4 of your season and you paid $125, $195? What happens then? Do they get a refund for that? What happens in those situations?
Yeah, that's, for this year, we have not provided refunds for quarantines. Just like we have not cut coaching stipends because a coach can't coach for 2 weeks because his or her team's in quarantine. So we have not offered discounts for quarantine or cut coaches' pay this year for quarantine reasons.
So as a parent, I might have a hard time paying an increased fee, knowing that there might be a risk that my kid might miss most of the season,
But at the same time, we were paying coaches that didn't see kids on the floor.
True.
A lot of virtual coaching early on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're even doing it right now. Some of our track coaches are doing virtual coaching with some of our athletes right now.
Further discussion? Okay, then I guess we're ready. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then Stephen, if we could vote, please.
Deb Pauley,
Yes.
Ryan Daynard,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennon,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Sarah Layan,
Yeah.
Molly Monarch.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you again, Stephen. I know it's been a tough year for you, and we appreciate everything you're doing in the best interest of the kids. Okay, moving on to board and administrative. What was that? Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report, please.
Good evening, Chair Polly, members of the board. Tonight, I will provide a brief update on our ESSER funds. Earlier, we anticipated ESSER 2 funds coming in around $264,000. We learned last week that our total allocation will be about $439,000. That was a nice surprise. Funds are available for the next 2 years. It's one-time money, so it's not for sustainable programming, but it is funds that we can use to support for the next couple of years some of our summer programs, our wraparound programs. We could do unique things with our incoming freshmen or incoming fifth graders to jumpstart their school years. We can use those funds for childcare and youth programming as well. ESSER 3 funds, we anticipate hearing something in the next few days. As I've shared in some weekly updates, they have quite an extensive process when federal funds come into the state. They end up working with the Legislative Advisory Commission, and it's quite interesting that anytime those funds come in, there are, basically a certain number of days that, like 20 days, that they have to review those funds. And if there is even one single question, the dates start over and they start counting those 20 days again. And if there's another question, it's another 20 days. So it's quite interesting. We believe for the 90% of those ESSER 3 funds that no questions came in before the deadline on April 9th. So we should hear something very soon about what that looks like. I will say again, it's one-time money. They'll have very specific parameters for how we can use those funds, but it is very helpful. Lots of conversations right now around the state about that and how we could use that to help support, even if it's 2-year positions, because again, it's one-time money, to help support some learning loss or some mental health needs, and really thinking about what that might look like for us here in Jordan. So more to come on that. The other thing I'd like to share, just as that spring COVID-19 update, our staff, we have the best staff. I try to say that every time we have a board meeting because they just do some amazing things in supporting our kids. They continue to work really hard to ensure the safest, healthiest environments for our students. We've been really fortunate. I shared earlier, all staff that requested a vaccine were offered that vaccine. That's been very helpful. We continue to offer on-site testing here for staff every other Monday. And our staff are using it. It's nice to know that they have that opportunity here. One thing I would like to just share with the board, we are seeing an uptick in cases. They're calling it the fourth surge. Scott County cases, I can remember, back in January and early February, sometimes I'd see on the daily update that I check every day, maybe 6 new cases. That number has looked more like 60 or 70 new cases for us here in Scott County, so we're seeing a lot more. And so we really do need to double down and be really vigilant with our mitigation strategies. The 0 to 17 group, really, right now we're seeing more cases there. It's accounting for quite a few cases. They're also saying that this new variant, the B117, likely is prevalent across Scott County. Probably it would account for about half of the cases they're seeing at this time. They're saying it is a little bit more contagious, easier to get. In some cases, they see tougher symptoms. We've been really fortunate. We have had some cases throughout this school year, but we really haven't seen spread in our schools, and that has been really, I think, the celebration this year. That being said, it goes back to being really cautious and careful in our classrooms. I will say that I'm really proud whenever I'm in different meetings and there are schools that have struggled to be able to be back in person, and we've been doing it really well for a long time with all of our students and keeping kids and staff healthy. So that's a celebration. One thing I would say is we do take it really seriously, and our parent partners, our families have been excellent. We do need them to keep checking those symptoms every day. And we have had students come to school where maybe somebody else in the home wasn't feeling well. We just can't have that happen. We've got to make sure if anybody is feeling ill in the home that they all stay home and get it checked out. It's the safest thing, and it really helps us keep our doors open and keep our kids in school. Last thing I will share, our school year planning continues. We're already planning ahead for next year, but The spring is always an exciting time. We'll have some events for our students that will look a little bit more traditional. As Mr. Perkel mentioned, we're looking forward to a spring play. And, you know, our athletics and activities continue throughout this spring. We're looking to have a really nice grand march for our juniors as well. And honestly, can't wait for graduation. It'll be my first one here in Jordan Public Schools. Cannot wait to do that on the football field. So with that, that concludes my report.
Okay, any questions for Superintendent Evenson?
Do we know what graduation looks like yet?
We do not, but I can tell you this, we will have an amazing COVID preparedness plan for it. We do know that it'll be on the football field, but what we're looking at now is what's our capacity? How many guests can our kids invite? Like how many can we actually have on the field? What will that look like? Will we have students seated in the same place, or will we put them somewhere else on the football field and use both sides of bleachers? We are working through all of that, but we do know it's going to be on that football field. It's going to be amazing, and we're going to have it.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, on to Jeff's report, the high school principal. Jeff, are you on with us? Anything you want to highlight? And you're muted. Jeff, you're muted.
Darn it. I was careful to turn my camera on, so I was being engaged in that way with my camera, but I forgot to turn on my volume. So can you guys hear me all right? Thumbs up if you can hear me all right. All right. As reported, everything's in there. Ms. Evenson also mentioned a lot of the things that I already, that are going on in the high school. So I would just open it up to any questions that you may have for me.
Any questions? Okay, looks like not. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, Ben, middle school.
I almost pulled the Jeff and forgot to unmute myself. So I would echo the same thing Superintendent Evenson shared. Just our staff was doing a fantastic job. But then I would also just say everything was covered, I think, for the most part. We have MCA testing coming up, but I guess the rest of it I would just report as reported and see if there are any questions from any of the board members about the middle school.
Any questions for Ben? Okay. Thank you.
Chair Polly, can I jump back in? Chair Polly, can I jump back in for a second?
Absolutely.
I failed to mention this before, but having been in the role of activities director and in my new role as a principal, I just wanted to say a thanks to Mr. Perkel. His job this year has been beyond anything that I've ever had to experience, and I had to experience in my 5 years. With the changing of just, spring is always crazy with just weather changes and the things he's had to do. So I just wanted to give a public thank you to Joe for a super thankless job this year, because there's just no way to win in anything that's being done with it. So I wanted to just give him a public thank you for that. And I regret not doing that during my first part. So thank you for giving me the floor again.
Yes, thank you, Jeff, and we certainly echo that. We know it's tough. Thank you. Is Melissa
I have a question. Can I just interject and ask Jeff a question? For those, because isn't ACT testing coming up like this week or next week?
Yes, it's tomorrow.
Oh, it is tomorrow. I should have known that, and I think it did come up on my calendar. For any students that aren't able to attend for ACT testing, is there a plan B for that scheduled test for them?
Yep, any student that is currently quarantined, which we have some, they were sent out a separate email to the parents and the students, and in that it shares what they can do. There will be another test on June 12th. That's a national test. So the test we have tomorrow is a district level test. We pay for that for our kids. We still do that, which is awesome. And so we're working with ACT right now to see if they do not charge us for tests not taken, we're hoping that we can roll that money over. We haven't talked to Amy about this yet, but we're hoping that we can roll that money over and create a form for students to register for ACT in June, on June 12th, and then we would be able to reimburse them. That's our goal, to do that for those number of kids that are in that position. So we
Perfect,
have
thank you.
communicated that out to families already. We have not communicated out the part about guaranteeing them that there will be a refund, or not a refund, but a kind of a coupon, for lack of a better term, that they could reimburse. So that's what we're hoping.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for either Ben or Jeff? Okay, Renee, I can't tell, is Melissa on with us tonight?
She is unable to join tonight.
Okay, so then we're on to, Director of Teaching and Learning. Is-
We do not have any other administrators other than our Director of Finance and Director of Special Ed with us this evening.
Okay, so any questions on any of the other reports? Okay, so, Stephen, did you have anything
Oops, sorry, I
that
forgot
you
you,
wanted to
Stephen.
touch?
No, it's kind of, you see my report. If you guys have any questions, really the only big thing that we're going to try to implement this year is more of a buyback program for some of our devices. We're having, because of our cycle we're doing with our replacements of 5th and 9th graders, we're gaining a higher number of usable devices that we just don't need for spares, and so we're contacting resellers. And with supply issues from COVID and just a high demand of Chromebooks, the used market is pretty high prices right now. So we're trying, it's kind of nice that we have extras and the prices are high. So we're working on that. And so there should be something coming this summer once we have the final numbers of a pretty long, what do you call it? A pretty long list that you guys will have to declare a surplus. And then those are the ones we'll try to, get some money back instead of just giving them to recycling to be demolished.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Who else did you say was here, Superintendent Evenson?
We had Chad Williams and Amy Hafman.
Okay, Chad, did you have anything? Chad or Amy?
No,
Anything?
I do not. The only thing that I just wanted to highlight is just we are preparing for summer school, extended school year right now for targeted services, and extended school year for special education. We're getting information and communication out to families about that. And the only other thing is we're preparing for our annual horse camp for our Native American students this summer. So we've been busy just getting things set up already for summer. That's it.
Great.
Hey,
Thanks,
Chad. Chad?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is Lauren. I just have a quick question. Bev, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you notice if there is going to, or can you tell yet if there is going to be an increase in students who participate in summer school who are going to, are there kids that maybe were on the border before that absolutely will be going to summer school? Is there an increase in our numbers, I guess is my question.
I have not met with Sarah Miller to go over those numbers yet, so I can't predict at this moment.
Okay, that'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Amy, did you have anything?
I'm just really waiting to hear what the legislature does, and every day we get more news, so.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Okay, thanks, administrative team. Ryan, I'm gonna rely on you for this because I don't have my list of, board committees in front of me. So, we're gonna do board committee reports. And I'm gonna ask you, Ryan, to, hopefully Stephen can put them up on the screen.
So is this list of meeting dates accurate? Okay. So we had scale on 312 and 49, and I was not invited to either one of them by the email list. Anything? Any updates?
That
on
needs,
Yeah, so Scale, Scale goes to our junk mail, which is so fun. Stephen and I have tried to fix that. We can't. It does not like the address, but I do attend. And we had a really great presentation this last Friday morning. And of course, I don't have the guy's name in front of me, but the presenter talked about living in a post-COVID world. And it was so fascinating and interesting. And he talked about how just the work environment and communities will change post-COVID. They said they looked at data that suggested that after every pandemic that we've experienced, there is always a significant shift in some way, shape, or form. They talked about parking lots not being helpful anymore because less people will be driving to work. They talked about when you're dealing with large infrastructure, putting all that money into the highway system might not be the best idea because, again, we won't have the volume of cars on the road. So quite interesting. It wasn't really geared towards education, but that group is a robust, comprehensive group. So there were a lot of city officials there as well. But I absolutely loved it. Like, they held my attention for this hour they presented.
Okay, can we somehow make sure that Ryan does get on that? I don't know who the powers to be are there.
Renee's gonna remind me.
Yeah, he is on it. It just goes to his junk mail,
I
just
just
like mine
refuse
does.
to check my junk
So, but I
Okay.
promised him I'd email him from now on.
We used to do them in person, and I just
Okay, thank
knew
you.
which day of the month to show up, but it doesn't work anymore.
Okay,
All right, Booster Club.
Booster Club did not meet in March.
Okay. Joint Powers.
Joint Powers did meet, and so did Community Education. They both met within this last 2-week period, so I'm just going to combine the recap for both of those. Joint Powers, we talked about the facility cleaning fee, and there's going to be a change to it for our associations. It's going to change to a $35 fee, just a one-time cleaning fee per team, which should be received very well from our associations. We also had discussion about Celebrate Jordan. That is going to take place on June 6th in the elementary school parking lots. And then from a community ed perspective, a few things we have is we've set a record for track shooting. Those numbers are up. We have 40 kids. The coaching and leadership camps that are part of the leadership team that Coach Urbanik is doing. We have 48 kids currently signed up for that. Soccer shots is full. Tennis camps are all starting to fill up as well. So we have a lot of activities in the community ed brochure that are starting to fill up. And I think, and then the one last thing is cardio equipment move again in the circ. Otherwise, that's it.
It is moving.
Lauren, I think Steven's report said that Celebrate Jordan was going to be in the middle school lot.
I'm looking at the agenda and it says parking or the elementary school parking lot. So if that is,
It is
that's just
accurate, elementary.
Yeah, elementary school parking lot.
Yep.
So this question is not meant for Lauren at all, but like, have we received any change in guidance on cleaning procedures?
No, not that I'm aware of. They just want you to clean everything always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, the CDC says it like doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I did see that whole thing on soap and water. I know, but no, we haven't received any update. Great question, though.
All right.
Okay.
APAC. We had APAC 2 meetings, it looks like.
Yes, we did not meet in April, but we did meet on March 25th. I think that the April one is still trying to be rescheduled. But we talked about, Chad already talked about how we're confirming dates for horse camp. We discussed the budget. Our after-school tutoring, I think for the first time, maybe close to or even a little bit over in terms of budget, which is good because we want that to be utilized. We're working on a banquet that may be a drive-through banquet, maybe in person. We don't know at this point, is my understanding. And I believe, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's supposed to be May 26th. And then college and career visits we talked about because they have funds to reimburse Native parents for those kinds of things up to a certain amount. That we discussed having an eagle feather ceremony for our seniors who are going to be graduating. And then, yes, let's see. And then just academic coaching. And then, let's see. We're talking about having a parental information meeting once or twice a year, serving food to draw more people to participate because our participation is pretty low. And we would really like to see that increase. And then our regular meeting on May 6th, we will have a vote for new members and officers. And that was pretty much what we talked about. And I don't know when our next meeting will be. That's to be determined. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Sandy.
We did have Education Foundation meeting on March 16th. They are really pushing the grad grams right now, so I think they're having them, Bluff Creek, the Cirque, Rademachers is where you can pick them up and drop them back off at those locations. And I believe it's through May 16th.
And the high school.
Oh, and the high school. I think it's through May 16th that you can do those and send them back. So, and they also did really talk about on social media that every time you guys see something from the Education Foundation, if you can share it, they get a lot more people that like their page and then get more acquainted with what the Education Foundation actually is and what it, how it started, where it came to be. So just share that stuff if you see it on social media too. So
I've seen the grad.
Molly, can I ask you a question?
Also,
Sorry,
at
everybody's
the,
talking once.
Also at the foundation meeting, Mike Verlos announced that he's going to step down as president. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Mike for he was the first president of the foundation and he's done a great job of leading it. So just kudos to him. And then also Molly or Connie, or I can, but do you want to explain what the grad grams are? Because I've gotten a couple of messages from parents saying, how does this work? What is it? So
That was gonna be my question, and
Yeah.
the follow-up on that was, is it a fundraiser, or like?
Yep.
what's
It is a fundraiser.
Yeah, it's a fundraiser for the Education Foundation. So you buy a grad gram for $1 a piece, and you can write it out to a senior of your choice, and then you just write a little message to them, and then they will compile them all together and put them into like a little booklet for the kids. And then each one will get a message from the principal and from the superintendent. So each kid will get something. But it's just a nice way to kind of show your congratulations, good luck in the future to all the seniors that are graduating.
So I bought for my whole family, and at Easter, I passed them all out, and they have to bring them back to me. But there are people that are getting real creative, like kids that are in organizations, and they're decorating them. And I know that Rachel Henches said that she got 2 books when she graduated. That's how many people in her small town put it. And then those dollars will go back, minus printing fee, will go back to the foundation as a fundraiser. Plus, it's kind of cool.
And I think she had said that the high school had offered to print them for them.
Yep.
So.
And then there's a cover that's got
And make the booklets, yes.
the arts and athletics on it, and it'll be a pretty cool thing for kids to save.
I know Rademachers has been sold out a couple times because people have bought them out.
And
so.
it said on today, Bluff Creek, they were sold out, and they requested 200 more of them. So people are picking them up. It's catching on. So if you know anybody that's a graduate, for sure, send a little message to them.
Yeah, when I saw that on social media, I thought it was a great idea, and I love it. And I hope to get over to one of those locations to buy myself some grad grams to share with some students that are graduating this year. But it's awesome. I love it.
And Rademachers has them right at every checkout line. So just when you're checking out, just ask for them, and they have just a code that they plug into the register. Right there. So.
I had a question. Are students buying them for other students, or is it mainly just families? I'm just curious.
They're going to sell, the National Honor Society is selling them during lunch breaks.
Okay.
So they can buy them and write them out for each other.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
okay, what's next, Ryan?
I motion to adjourn.
Well, wait a minute. I had Southwest Metro.
Good job.
There's nothing else there.
Do you need to withdraw your motion, Ryan?
I did have a Southwest
There's not a second.
Metro meeting.
I withdraw, Deb. Please proceed.
Okay, so we're moving forward with the Dean Lakes building. We'll be having our next meeting there, I believe it's next week. We'll be meeting there in person. So the work there, the construction there is coming along really nicely. The ABE program, the students are down by about 1/3. So with COVID, that has really hurt our ABE programs. Care and treatment and the alternative ed programs and special ed are pretty much holding their own. Career tech has been a bit of a struggle just because of COVID and the way the Career Tech program runs. And we'll be starting contract negotiations over there very soon. So other than that, that was good.
Does anybody else have any other committee meetings that we missed? Or does anybody have anything special they want to share?
Just if you can, go see Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay. Great. Okay. Brian, you're up.
I motion
Looking
to
for a
adjourn.
motion. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Okay, we have a second. Roll
Who
call,
seconded?
Stephen.
Who seconded?
Molly.
Stephen?
Deb Polly,
Yes.
Ryan Dainert,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennon,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Sarah Lanen,
Yes.
Molly Monnock.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for putting up with us